Thought I'd talk today about poverty and income inequality. My mother grew up taking a bath from water warmed by a kettle. My father's father drank his paycheck, and my grandmother couldn't have a surgery she so desperately needed as a result. My aunt was mentally ill and therefore lived a life of poverty. She commits suicide as a senior citizen. This is my family's experience. This is the river that runs beneath me. But my parents, they had opportunity. They had livable wages as teachers, and they went on to access university. In fact, I went to their graduations when I was about 10 years old. That was the 1970s. My parents gave me opportunities as a result. And today I live in a great neighborhood in Ottawa. So statistics say I'll live a long time. After all, 40%, 60% of our health is associated with our social and physical environment, not our DNA. But let me tell you a painful story, and that's a story that all too many of you may know very well, and that's the story of poverty. In the last 30 years, our economy has doubled, but the average Canadian makes 20% less. I don't live in poverty. But experts agree that at least 3 million Canadians do. That's at least 10%, and some say it's as many as 15%. That's 1 in 7 Canadians. 30% of food bank users are children and youth. Here's another painful story. Many communities in Canada are in decline. They're bleeding. But many people in those communities, while some are economically thriving, others are experiencing devastating effects. In fact, 42% of Canadians say that if their paycheck was delayed by just 1 week, that they would experience financial hardship. That's 15 million people. So let's talk about money. How much does poverty cost? Well, poverty costs the taxpayers more than $24 billion per year. Homelessness costs our economy $7 billion per year. If you're poor, your health suffers. Poverty costs our healthcare system $40 billion annually. And the rich can expect to live 20 years longer than the poor. Let me repeat that. The rich can expect to live 20 years longer than the poor. But I don't feel sorry for those living in poverty, and I don't offer my sympathy. I offer my respect and a sense of shared human dignity. After all, how far does sympathy go? Let me ask you a question. What kind of Canada do you want to live in? I'm not naive. These problems and the socioeconomic conditions that create them are not easily changed. But it is possible by investing in human dignity, supportive housing, income security, mobility, health supports, early childhood care and education, food security, labor, and employment. In fact, by investing in these, we can improve the quality of life for the vast majority of our population. But I think we have to start by asking ourselves a few existential questions. Who are we? Why do we exist? How much is enough? How do we choose to live with and among our fellow Canadians? By starting there, I think we can agree that with at least 3 million Canadians living in poverty, our poverty rate is shocking and it's unacceptable. Why is it shocking? Well, let me ask you this. I'm standing between you and dinner right now. Are you hungry? I'm hungry. Now imagine you're 5 years old and hungry is normal. Now imagine you're 65 years old and hungry is still normal. Do you ever get used to hunger pangs? Should my daughter, who's 8 years old, get used to hunger pangs? It's also shocking because if we compare Canada to other developed countries, Canada ranks 24th out of 34 OECD countries. That means that countries of similar economic strength have demonstrated success in alleviating poverty. And while Canada's GDP is comparable to those of Norway and Netherlands, Austria, each of these countries ranks significantly higher than we do on global measures of poverty and inequality. So it is possible for us to do better. Mental illness, physical disability, abuse, addiction, vulnerability, social exclusion. In the end, I hope you'll agree that respecting human dignity is what matters most. So first, let's consider a few principles. The promise of capitalism, more and more for everyone, is very seductive. But second, this promise has proven unsound, as evidenced by our growing wealth gap. So what does that mean to you? Well, it means that fewer and fewer Canadians can afford what they need to live a decent life. Not a life of luxury, but a decent life at a reasonable cost. Food isn't a luxury. You see, without values and a line of sight on human dignity for all, I think we lose perspective. It's an illusion that we all thrive if we focus on our own well-being alone. There is a segment of the population that has and always will be vulnerable and need social supports. So I imagine my Canada to be strong and resilient, a caring community where it's possible for everyone to thrive. But thriving communities require the collective, you and me, to invest. Think food, think housing, think shelter, clothing, opportunities, employment, skills. And in order for thriving communities to happen, you have to give. You have to give of your own time, and you have to give of your own money. You know, when your donation goes to work, it helps to support community kitchens. It teaches people about nutrition, teaches people how to cook a healthy meal for their families, for their kids. And when your donation goes to work, it makes sure that there are before and after school programs, making it easier on all working mums and dads. It also makes sure that all kids have supervision, that they have a breakfast, healthy breakfast before they start school, and perhaps some help with homework afterward. And when your donation goes to work, seniors can continue to live with dignity beyond retirement. Creating great communities for everyone means we don't leave anyone behind. It means that we strive to eliminate the divide between rich and poor. We don't judge, we create possibilities. But philanthropy actually continues to decline year over year. Fewer and fewer people are giving. And in some, people are giving less in total. In fact, our philanthropy in Canada has not returned to the levels seen before the 2008 financial recession. You know, even G20 finance ministers recently agreed that we must strive to ensure that growth is inclusive. They agreed that we must address income inequality. So you might ask yourself, why does income inequality matter so much? Well, when income inequality rises, economic growth falls. It lowers social mobility and education, skills development. So we need you to champion everyone in your community. The bottom line is there's no excuse for poverty in a society, in a country as wealthy as ours. There is no excuse. So let's reduce division and polarization and unite regions within Canada and remove the barriers to a life of opportunity. Let's make sure millennials have the same opportunities as boomers. But vulnerable people cannot just lift themselves out of the conditions, their complex conditions and circumstances. It's a fallacy that they can. And the seduction of more, of luxury, must be tempered by our conscience, by our Canadian values, that we do not leave others behind suffering. The bottom line, income inequality is killing your neighbors. Income inequality breeds an antiquated system of class. It breeds bullying. It kills innovation. It breeds distrust. It increases crime. It encourages radicalism. How about you? Could those things affect you? In fact, the cost of poverty diminishes us all. It puts us all at risk. Put another way, the greatest threat to Canada's long-term prosperity is income inequality. So we have a sense of urgency in our country. What can we do? What can you do? Well, first, take the time to think about your own values. What do you stand for? Where do you draw the line? What compels you to act? I'm asking you, what kind of Canada defines you? Is it all right with you that some people have only ever known sleeping in foster homes or in a shelter bed? Articulate what kind of Canada defines you and then share that. Share that with others. Share your beliefs, your values. Second, engage, be the change. Tell your friends, engage your family, excite your children about what it means to be caring and compassionate toward others. Let's teach them that hunger has no place in Canada. Third, activate the change. Don't take our democracy, our freedom for granted. Vote. Now, I'm guessing that this room does that very, very well. So bring others along. Advocate for others to engage and to vote. So what kind of Canada do you want to live in? I want mine to be economically and socially prosperous. But we need a plan, and that plan needs to focus on long-term impact, not Band-Aid solutions. Let's put specific, measurable goals and targets and timelines to concrete policies and programs that we know can provide equal access to quality of life. Let's invest in dignity. I want my Canada to put people first, to value human dignity as a non-negotiable. And I want my Canada to talk about the outcomes they want to see. And I want my Canada to thrive, to identify and deal with conditions leading to poverty. I want stakeholders to engage in a social investment strategy, from taxation to charitable donations, social entrepreneurship through innovation, through the development of accessible consumer products and services. I want us to reinvest in the social infrastructure of our country. We can and we should invest. And these investments can and should be focused on root causes, measurable, achievable, and transparent. We can invest in human dignity, investing in the social and economic balance. This will reduce inequality. In other words, reducing inequality in Canada is probably the best ROI that we can give to everyone. I want my fellow Canadians to live with dignity. Quality of life for everyone, well-defined and invested in. In closing, this is up to you. This is up to me. This is up to all of us. How we educate ourselves, how we teach our children, how we push for change, We can't stand around till someone else gives a damn. If our inequality is what drives us apart, then let's unite. Let's unite in the agenda to close the gap. Let's invest in human dignity. This is my Canada. And together, we can make it even better. Thank you very much.